Good afternoon. Hello, PythonPH. Thank you for having us again here. We've been working with PythonPH since 2019, and it's nice to be here with fellow Python devs. I'm Joel Eldor. I'm a Google Cloud Architect for APLDT, but I'm also a co-founder of our nonprofit Grupo Kalinangan. We are a cultural nonprofit since 2016 with members from all over the Philippines, and our mission is to promote and preserve Philippine local cultural heritage. And we fulfill that mission by conducting LGU programs, projects related to cultural mapping, building of heritage inventories and databases, training and capacity building. We also do R&D for app development on cultural mapping and heritage awareness. So I just want to share some of our citizen apps what we develop in Python. The first one, this is what we use normally. It's called Mobile Heritage Online, or MOHON for short. MOHON is Spanish for marker. It's our mapping tool where we build our cultural maps, or heritage inventories of historic monuments and sites, cultural objects, intangible cultural heritage like festivals, arts and crafts, food, tradition, oral history, etc. So we have more than 20 LGUs already using this app for their cultural mapping projects. And then we have our second one, it's called Memoria. This one developed on SharePy. We use this as a digital crowdsourcing platform for people, for citizens to upload their old photos and share their memories of their city. Think of it like Instagram, but only for old photos. So the city government of Pasig has been using this already since last year. And we want to have more LGUs using Memoria soon. Now, this year we're going to have a new app called Culture Sensitive Planning and Management App for LGUs. We don't have a fancy name for this yet. But what this app does is it facilitates data collection during our workshops with the LGUs. And it gets data from GIS and table data from the cultural maps that we create. And it has features like dashboards, data visualization insights, and progress trackers with recommendations from experts in the culture and tourism industry. So what this app does is that it feeds GIS and table data coming from MOHON. And when we conduct these LGU governance workshops on culture, we input more data related to tourism and economic readiness, cultural risks and hazards. We log problems and issues at the LGU level, and community and stakeholder aspirations. And when we combine and process this data together, we want to provide charts, visuals, graphs. So this is like a concept bubble chart that we want to show so that LGUs can understand and see which of their cultural properties have the highest potential for tourism, productization, economic activity, livelihood, and which of their cultural heritage has had highest risk to loss due to man-made hazards and natural hazards. So that together with the experts, the LGUs can come up with more robust programs, policies, and projects to protect them. Ultimately, this app will allow them to better govern their cultural heritage through a data-driven and evidence-based approach, revitalize the local culture, and instill a sense of pride of place. So, this year, Grupo Kalinangan has been awarded with a grant from the National Commission for Culture and the Arts. We got a government grant. We're going to implement a series of activities called Cultural Maps for Culture-Based Governance for LGUs. So we're going to conduct this for the next 3 months in the town of in the towns of Metro Naga. We want to implement this project in the towns of Magarao, Kamaligan, and Kanakman. So why am I doing here? Okay. Grupo Kalinangan needs you. We need people who will help us build this culture-sensitive planning and management app. We need web developers, we need data scientists, data analysts, we need cloud DevSecOps who are professional with Azure, Google Cloud, who can help us build. If you think you can help in nation building and contribute to preserving our local heritage and history, please join us. Send me an email to info@grupokalinangan.org, or you can approach me. Just look for this pink guy. And let's talk this afternoon. So again, this is Joel from Grupo Kalinangan. We're doing this para sa bayan. Maraming salamat.
Hi, my name is Marvin, and I would like to remind you all of the two hardest problems in computer science. Number one is naming things. Number two, number two is cache invalidation, and number three is off by one errors. Okay. But especially for number three, off by one errors, which usually happens in C-style for loops, that this is something that I have never experienced with Python, especially since for loops in Python are basically for each loops. So as Python users, we often do not have to deal with a lot of the pains in looping. So for all of those loops, the iterators have to deal with the iterables themselves. So we never have to manually deal with stop iterations. So however, when it comes to discussions surrounding the Python education, as well as tech influencer circles, more often than not, we actually have to reinvent the wheel ourselves. So we have to make functions that deal with loops or make our own generators. However, we don't actually need to reinvent the wheel every time. So I would like to put a spotlight on this wonderful module that I discovered as I was answering the Advent of Code 2022. So this is more iter tools. This is actually a super powered alternative to the built-in iter tools module. So just to highlight the powers, so I have here three functions. So first is the more iter tools.chunked. So if you have a list list of numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you want to chunk it by 3, it will give you a list of 1, 2, 3, and list of 4, 5, 6. So that's awesome. Another is more iter tools.windowed. So if you like to window a list of 1 to 5 by 3, so it will give you a list of 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, and 3, 4, 5, as well as collapse. So in this example below, we have a list of multiple levels of nesting. So we have a list of tuple 1, 2, a list of tuple of list of 3, 4, and a list of 5, and list of 6. So this level of nesting need to be flattened easily by more iter tools.collapse. So that's wonderful, I guess, and I think we can really do away with it more easily. So if you want to use this wonderful module, you can just pip install more dash iter tools. And if you want to use it, you have to import more underscore iter tools. So I hope you learned something new.
You know, man, and the title itself, like, I just want to discuss something that I think most people overlook in terms of data science and machine learning. So, yeah, sometimes I can't use CNN on image. I do feature engineering, or something. So yeah, it's typical here in this image right here. You have training image, and you train on like maybe a CNN. You produce a model, and then you have test image, and then you have results. Most of us, or at least, I don't know, some of you have tried CNN, knows that it can take like several, weeks or days. And it's quite annoying, it's quite frustrating. So, and sometimes images doesn't work either, right? So, yeah, it's so sad, yes. CNN, it's not working. Sadness. So, but yeah, anyway, this is one of the things that my colleagues always say, like the data scientists that I've worked with. You don't need a new data set. You just need to engineer or extract like features from your existing data set. And it's quite prevalent in really, really difficult problems, right? Because how would you validate a model using the same data, right? You can represent the data in another way. In this case, which I'm going to show you, I'm going to use descriptive statistics. Mean, median, mode, kurtosis, skewness, those kinds of stuff. So imagine I have an image like this, right? So this is a rice field image. It's actually quite difficult to run this on CNN. And the reason is the texture. So if you want to identify objects or segmented objects in this image, it's quite difficult. Trust me, I tried. This is my research, by the way. So what did I do? I divided the image and then I tried to figure out how can I represent that small block of image right there into some sort of another data set, right? And for some reason, we just thought of like, hey, we can use descriptive statistics on this. So we generated a histogram. You're familiar with histogram. For those who are not, it's just the distribution of pixels. So the histogram represents like RGB channels and the grayscale channels, right? So when you have a distribution like this, you can, get mean, median mode, standard deviation, and in this case, we measured the kurtosis and skewness of the histogram. Ano nga bang meaning ng kurtosis at skewness? Basta yun. Yeah, it's technical, so I forgot the technical term. So here, the upper one is a damaged portion of the rice field, while the lower one is a non-damaged portion of the rice field. As you can see, there's some sort of difference in terms of like the blue channel and stuff like that, but we have to investigate more. And so we did. So we just got the values and we map everything, yada yada, and it's something like this. And you can see that there's a clear separation between the damaged and the non-damaged regions, which is the orange and the blue ones. There are outliers, but it's manageable, So instead of using the images itself, we were able to derive the descriptive statistics of each image to be able to separate the damaged and the non-damaged region. And I think it's what most people needs to understand when you want to enter machine learning or artificial intelligence or data science, is that it's not always in hindsight, right? So yeah, in conclusion, Rick. So yeah, feature engineering is fun. Training bad features is not fun. So you need to find alternative feature. It's fun. Overfitting, which is a cause of, it might happen. It's not fun. Faster models are fun. Training for 1 week is not fun. Like, don't ever train a model for 1 week. That's crazy. And yeah, that's it. Thanks. Bye.
Yep. Hello everyone, I'm Zorek Salvo. I'm a Python PH core volunteer, and I'll be talking about building sophisticated user interfaces in a terminal using textual. Okay, so with the ever-changing trend in web, I think it's another one. I'm just kidding. I think the design is going retro, and these days the old is becoming new. So have you heard of text-based user interface? Basically, we have that before. All the systems we have are in command line. So, but that's not pretty. But with this package, I discovered just 2 weeks ago, and I just started using 3 days ago. You'll get to like it. So what is textual? It's a rapid development framework. It uses your existing Python skills. Low requirements, you only need to install textual. And also, it's cross-platform. Basically, everything that has command line, terminal, it will run. It can also run remotely. Textual apps can run over SSH, and of course, CLI integration. And these are the samples. So you can actually create calculator app, pride app, some sort of welcome app, and stopwatch. Then let's try to code it. Sana gumana. So I just dissect it. So basically, you have textual app baseless. Then you have to create. You have to subclass the name of your app. Then here you can add the title, add the bindings. You can toggle it on and off. I'm in a dark mode. Also, you can have sidebar. And also, you can have CSS in terminal. Okay. So, yeah, basically CSS. So, I'm just going to run it. So, here's how it looks in the terminal. So, basically, this is the easiest one. I only added, these values are just static. So, but we can make it dynamic by adding requests, etc. Anything packages that you can use in Python. And also, take a look at this. You can have buttons. All right. And basically, these are just components. You can create components by subclassing container. So we have also sidebar. We have the D table. Then as a PythonPH volunteer, I would like to take this opportunity to also use this and thank our sponsors. So I've created a sidebar in the terminal. So, yeah, so basically that's it. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Fralami Espinola, Head of Engineering of Misfit Incorporated, based on Cagayan de Oro City. So I'm from Mindanao. And then, as you know, today, I want to talk about the women in the tech community and my experiences also in the tech community. The tech community industry in the Philippines is growing rapidly, as you know, and increasing number of women are joining in the industry. So I see a lot of women as well here. However, like in many parts of the world, women in tech in the Philippines still face challenges like bias, discrimination, and underrepresentation. The tech industry in the Philippines is growing rapidly. An increasing number of women are joining the industry as well. However, women in tech, there are many organizations in the Philippines as well that are dedicated to supporting and empowering women in tech, such as PyLadies, Django Girls, and Women Who Code, that are one of the many. These organizations provide a platform for women to connect, share their experiences, and learn from each other. They also provide opportunities for women to develop their skills and advance their careers. Django Girls is a global organization that aims to inspire and introduce women to the world of technology and programming through free workshops. In the Philippines, Django Girls has organized multiple workshops to help women learn how to code and build websites using the Django framework. And also we have PyLadies, on the other hand, is a global organization that aims to promote and support women who use and love Python programming language. In the Philippines, PyLadies has organized meetups, workshops, and that help women learn, grow, and network in the tech industry. And then lastly, we also have the Women Who Code. It's a global nonprofit organization as well, dedicated to inspiring women to excel in technology careers. So those three organizations I've mentioned I think they're also known in Manila, like the Women Who Code Manila, PyLadies Manila, and I think the Django Girls is, at the moment, is in Cagayan de Oro City, which I am a lead organizer for the Django Girls as well. From my personal experience being part of the Django Girls, PyLadies, and Women Who Code in the Philippines, I've seen how important it is to have a supportive network. Being part of these communities has provided me with a safe and supportive space to learn, grow, and connect with other women in tech. Through these communities, I've also had the opportunity to participate in initiatives that support and promote diversity and inclusion in tech. For example, it was an inspiring event that reminded me of the importance of supporting and empowering women in tech. But being part of these communities in the Philippines is not without challenges. We still face cultural and social barriers that prevent women from fully participating in the tech industry. We need to work to address these barriers and promote gender equality in all aspects of society. In conclusion, the women and tech community in the Philippines is vital for creating a more diverse and inclusive tech industries. Organizations like Django Girls, PyLadies, and Women Who Code provide a safe and supportive space for women to connect, learn, and grow. And while it's not without its, I think, so let's continue to work together to build a strong and more inclusive tech community where everyone feels valued and supported, regardless of their gender or background. Thank you.
So, quick survey. Who here has heard of ChatGPT? Woo, let's go. Okay, so I get to skip a few slides. So, today I'll be talking about this skill, which is learning to talk with AI. So this has not existed in the past few years, but now it's becoming more and more relevant to everyone. In TM, Thinking Machines, we've just been researching on ChatGPT purely out of curiosity. And now some of our engineers have built like some cool web apps that I'm going to show you guys. So here are a few kind of like layers of understanding GPT. The first would be just using it as a virtual assistant. So that's pretty common and kind of approachable to everyone. Second would be actually integrating it to your tools. So that's when you use the API. That's when you start connecting it to your data sources. Then finally is to actually fine-tune it to understand your data. But since we have 5 minutes, let's just go for the first one. And the key skill here is prompt engineering. So when people first use ChatGPT, the most intuitive way to work with it is through conversation. So you ask it a question, and then one superpower of ChatGPT is that it can actually act on your feedback. So you give it input, then it gives you a new list of things based on your feedback. So you can just keep on doing that for like an entire conversation until you get the thing that you want. So this might be like the most entertaining way to do it, but it's not the most effective way to do it. Because one thing to recognize is that GPT performs very well with instructions. So instead of having a full-on conversation with a robot, you can just give it like 3 lines. Then you get the same thing without spending a few minutes talking to it. Here's another thing you can do. So let's say you're preparing for a presentation. So instead of getting like an essay type response, you can actually tell it to give you a table. You can even tell it which rows you want and the columns you want, and it produces the exact thing that you need. So one key thing to know about GPT is that it works in completions. So you give it a prompt, which is text containing patterns. Then it gives you a completion. You can kind of think of it as a highly sophisticated form of autocomplete. So if you tell it with great power, it responds with comes great responsibility. And so one key tool when working with ChatGPT is to actually split your prompt into 2 parts. So first would be your instructions. So that tells it how to behave. So for example, we can tell it to pretend it's a consultant explaining the following technical concept to a broad audience. Then you can just keep on listing your instructions here. Then you give it a subject. So for example, artificial intelligence. So what you've done here is you've created a tool. So if we wanted to explain something else, we just replace the subject. And if we wanted to explain it in a different way, we just change the instructions. So you can optimize those 2 things separately. And with this kind of design pattern, you can kind of already design like hundreds of GPT apps just by changing the instructions. So, for example, internally we have this tool. It's a GPT email polishing assistant. So you just put in your text in that text box, you press the button, then it produces a pretty good first draft for you already. As a user, that's the only thing you see. And what you don't see is that there's actually like a hidden set of instructions that we send to GPT. So as a developer, all you need to do is change this block of text, and you create like a totally different experience for the user. And we actually have another app that we use to kind of exercise with that. So I will actually be moving over to a very quick tech demo. Let's go. Yeah. So for example, here's a prompt we're kind of playing with. You can essentially try to make it replace 3 different people. So we want it to act like as a senior software engineer, DevOps engineer, and solutions architect. Now, let's tell it, let me just type. I want to make a mobile app with dashboards. So this app connects to the GPT API. You just click it. Now it gives you all the options that you have for kind of generating that app using this stack. Now if you just keep on adjusting your instructions, like for example, here we've added a few lines. We've told it to give 4 options, list them from simplest to most complex. You essentially change how it reacts to you. So here, pretty much the same context but different instructions. It now gives us 4 options, listed from simplest to complex, with all of the pros and cons. Let's go, on time. All right, so that's ChatGPT. Let's go.
So, why tech career ang topic ko? Tambay ako sa Reddit. Familiar ba kayo sa Reddit? So usually pag may nagtatanong doon about pera sa CS part, dalawa usually tanong. Paano ba mag 100K? Paano ba mag 200K? Hindi ko sasagutin yung question ni right now. Kung gusto yun ng specific answer, tanungin niyo lang ako mamaya kasi it's very specific to your context. Pero may lagi akong paulit na nakikita na common misconception. So sagutin ko ngayon. 17 years na ako nasa industry, kalahati nun dev, kalahati nun as management. Naging VP of Engineer ako once, CTO twice, and engineering manager ako for a Series B startup. Pero pabago-bago ako. Ngayon, manager ako, pwedeng next job ko dev, pwedeng next job ko manager. So, lesson 1, hindi porket nag-manager ko or nag-dev ka, hindi ka na pwedeng mag-switch. Pwede ka mag-switch. Common misconception yan eh. And hindi mo kailangan mag-pay cut. So, lesson 1. Second, para sa mga students, wala pang work, gusto maging papasok sa industry as juniors, ang expectation sa inyo ng employers, wala naman talaga kayong alam. Basic lang. And trainable. Yun yung hinahanap, trainable. So usually, yung mga advice dyan is kailangan meron kang GitHub repository, papakita mo yung mga ginawa mo. Kasi hindi, alam naman ng industriya natin na hindi kayo tinuturuan ng frameworks eh. So pag ginagawa, nag-aaral ako ng whatever, may GitHub repo ka. So that's one way. Another way is rumakit ka. Mag-Upwork ka, mag-Toptal ka, paggawa ng website ng tita mo, kahit wala ka namang kinita dyan, hindi naman alam ng employer mo yan. So okay lang yon. So lesson 2, as a junior, you need to show that you're trainable. Okay. Next is para sa mga gusto maging senior. Ito medyo silbi na to. Kasi ito yung mga ginagawa natin naturally. Kailangan lang magaling ka sa specific tech na pinili mo. Kung Python ka, web development, magaling ka doon. Kung data engineer ka, dapat magaling ka doon. So, kailangan lang focus ka doon. Ang end goal, pag senior ka, is dapat parang hinire ka senior. Medyo plug and play ka na lang. Bibigyan ka ng task, hindi ko na kailangan bigyan ng instructions. Parang tuturo ko lang kung saan, alam mo na kung paano pumunta doon. Usually, kailangan full stack, pero again, depende sa context mo. So, lesson 3, for senior, focus on your expertise, tech expertise. Ngayon, after senior, may dalawang path sa IT. Pwede ka mag-staff plus, pwede ka mag-management. Explain ko muna si management kasi yun yung alam natin. So, from developer, magpi-people management ka. Kung ano man nagpagaling sa'yo as a developer, yun ang ikababagsak mo as management, unfortunately. It's not for everybody. So, advice ko dito, lagi ko advice dito is bago ko mag-management, kausapin mo yung current manager mo. Sabi mo, uy, pre, gusto ko mag-manager. Pero try lang natin, mga 6 months. Kasi hindi mo naman alam kung gusto mo o hindi eh. Try mo lang, pag hindi for you, kahit sabihin natin magaling ka, pero ayaw mo, bumalik ka sa pagiging individual contributor. No harm, no foul, okay lang yun. It's much more common than you think. Marami akong ka-work na dating CTO, dating manager, dating whatever, na nagde-dev. Okay lang kasi yun. Again, going back sa lesson 1, pwede ka mag-go back and forth. Okay lang yun. So, for manager, try nyo muna, tignan nyo kung for you. Kasi it's not for everybody. And that's fine. Next is staff plus. Ano ang staff plus? Hindi masyado ginagamit ang term sa staff sa Pilipinas. Pero sa ibang bansa, sa FANG lalo na, ginagamit ang staff plus. That's basically katumbas ng management level. So kapag manager ka, tapos staff ka, pareho ng sweldo yun. Pag senior manager ka, tapos distinguished principal ka, pareho sweldo yun. So on and so forth. So ang staff plus, ang focus niyan is yung impact mo sa company. Pwedeng vertical or horizontal. Ano yung sabihin pag vertical? Pag vertical, parang malaki yung contribution mo to the product that you're working on. So parang medyo high level ka na, parang ikaw mismo nag-architect, or ikaw nag-tech lead, or whatever. So yun yung vertical part. Pag horizontal, dito papasok yung term ngayon na platform engineering. Kailangan i-empower mo yung ibang teams from other products na to do better in their job or to progress further in their work. So yun siya. So again, sa junior, kailangan trainable ka. Senior, focus on your tech expertise. Pag manager, try mo muna kasi it's not for everybody. Kung staff plus ka, kailangan increase mo yung impact mo. And again, going back to my lesson 1, pwede ka pagbalik from manager to individual contributor. Okay lang yun. Normal lang yun. Yun lang. Thank you.
So, my topic today is writing wet code, but I'm going to introduce myself first. I am Bong. I am a web application engineer, mostly software engineering and data engineering in one. So I've been using React, Python. See, this is a PyCon conference. So Airflow, we use BigQuery, and I like automating my infrastructure to Terraform, Docker, and Kubernetes. If you're interested in doing the same job as me, go to thinkingmachines.freshteam.com/jobs. Thank you. So, nice ad. So, I'm also a long-distance cyclist. So the longest I've been is 212 kilometers last ODAX, last December. Pretty fun hobby and expensive too. I also build PCs. That is a media server to serve my anime and TV shows and stuff. So yeah, pretty nerdy with those stuff. Okay, so we all know dry. Don't repeat yourself. It's the usual avoid duplicate code, whatever. Extract common code to an abstraction that can be reused by multiple components. So let me give you a radical thought that you don't really need to do that anymore. So presenting to you, write everything twice. So you can think of the code as the shapes, those red circles right there. So at some point, those red circles will specialize. So it's gonna have some sort of special use case or whatever in your code base. And you're gonna see some common patterns. That triangle right there is that common function. It could be a very small function, and it's not really a bad thing to do abstractions, but we should know when to use them. So for example, why do we use wet? So it provides more isolation, gives room for specialization. Getting a bug on one component does not translate to other components. So is it really bad to use dry code in the first place? Not really. You just need to be aware that there are benefits and costs when making an abstraction. So what's the benefit of an abstraction? It focuses on an intent. If you make a function that fetches from GPT, it's going to fetch from GPT. It can be reused by different API endpoints. You're going to focus on that intent of fetching data from GPT. You can also code reuse. You're going to just import from a library or some sort. You're going to use that code. And you avoid bugs in multiple call sites. But the cost of abstraction is accidental coupling. This happens mostly when you're dealing with production apps, that you're fixing something in this side of the code base and it breaks the other thing in it produces a lot of regression bugs and stuff. Another one is extra indirection. What happens here is you're focusing on layers and layers of code and you don't know what's happening. The last one is inertia. So there's this abstraction that you want to refactor, but you don't want to refactor because it's going to break the whole system. So that's the cost of abstraction. So for example, you have a bug there, so it's going to get all the bugs. So, okay. So case study, this is an API. You can think of it on Django. If you do the dry approach, you have inheritance there, right? Search control or something like that. So, ilang minutes na? Okay, 1 minute left. Okay, so in wet approach, you just copy-paste the code. Copy-paste it. It's fine. But if you have in this endpoint, you have a different take. You're going to filter by role-based access control for that results. And you don't have that same functionality in the other post controller. It's not going to affect the posts controller, the other API endpoint. And that's fine. It works. You deliver the feature and you're done. This is in line with the first doc that you have to keep it simple. All right? I think that's it. All good. Thank you.
I'm here to talk about how I earned some money from legally hacking websites. So, mo talagang pera, no? Disclaimer, I am by no means an expert hacker. Don't ask me to hack your ex's Facebook account or something. So, I just do this as a hobby, bug bounty hunting. So, what is bug bounty hunting? Basically, companies pay hackers when they find vulnerabilities in their sites, given that they follow rules of engagement and they're legally or invited to do so. So one platform is HackerOne.com, and also Google has a vulnerability disclosure program, and bug crowd. These are the big players in bug bounty platforms. So learning the ropes in hacking, I learned this by looking into Portswigger Academy, so you can check that out. These are the guys behind the popular software called Burp Suite, so you can check that out. And then HackerOne captured the flag, so this is more of a hands-on platform where you can test your hacking skills. And then I'll talk more about this later. And then HackerOne Hacktivity, you can check this out. So here, this is a feed of the reports, disclosure reports of other hackers when they reported their vulnerabilities. So here you can see that, oh, GitLab just awarded someone with $13,950 for stored XSS here. So we can learn from there, learn other how other hackers do their thing. And so yeah, where is this? And also YouTube. I learned all from YouTube. And what worked for me, again, getting private invites, HackerOne CTF. So in the HackerOne CTF, so you get points from getting flags, and then with enough points, you can get invited into their private program. So it's kind of how you prove yourself ready for getting invited. So next. So I have this automation. I have a daily subdomain enumeration that is hosted in a small DigitalOcean droplet. So I have, it automatically notifies me of new subdomains every 6 p.m. So after work, I get notifications like, oh, there's new subdomains in this target. So I have to check that out. So I SSH to the droplet, and then I manually test the interesting subdomains. So here, eventually with the HackerOne CTF, with enough points, I got invited into C, which is the company behind Shopee. It's public information that we have a private program, so it's okay for me to disclose this. So I got invited there last year. So I reported my first bug. With the automation, I stumbled upon this interesting subdomain, and then I logged in, and then I tested it manually, and then I found this interesting API that exposes 3,800 user records with their first name, last name, email, and then reported it in Shopee. So yeah, I had an ROI with the investments, I guess. So because I got rewarded with $200 and a bonus $50 for disclosing information disclosure vulnerability. So yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
All right, hi everyone. My name is Matthew, and I'm a solutions architect in Thinking Machines. So this is PyCon, and since Python is one of the lingua franca of the data science world, I would actually like to talk to you about how we can think about data platforms in a very simple way, because every single talk that I hear, sometimes people overcomplicate things. But there's actually an alternative way to think about it, so it's not so overwhelming, especially if you're coming into the industry and you have no data science background whatsoever. So my talk for today would just be the different parts of a data platform, how to think about it in terms of analogies, and then how to choose the different tools for each of the different parts of a data platform. I'll just make this really quick, okay? So I'll talk about what are the different parts of the data platform. So a data platform essentially can be thought of as a kitchen or a restaurant. So in a restaurant, the goal is to have different raw ingredients prepared and cooked for the customers in a way that is to make that food really appealing. So you can also think of a modern data platform the same way. In a kitchen, you have to start with the raw ingredients. In a data platform, you start with the raw data sources. So the question that you have to answer when you're dealing with data sources is, where is my data? Then, just like in a kitchen, so in a kitchen, if you have a restaurant, you have to import those ingredients from all around the country, from all around the world, into your centralized storage warehouse where you can process your food. We also have that in data platforms. So from your raw data sources, how do you get that data into a storage area? And then finally, sorry, not finally, but after you have your data, or if you're in a kitchen, if you have all your raw ingredients in a storage area, the next thing you have to think about is how do you cook that food into a palatable dish that your customers would love. In the data engineering world, we have the same thing. We try to, there's a stage where you have all the data and you try to munge it into a format that is understandable by your end business users. And then finally, there's the data interfaces in the data platforms, which is what allows your users to interact with the data. And in the kitchen analogy, that's where you serve, that's how you present the different dishes for the customer. Okay, so I'll just go really quickly here. I'll just talk about the different components of a data platform. For data sources, you have generally these data sources. You can have OLTP databases, applications, event collectors, etc. And then each of them have their own characteristics. And basically what you see and what kind of applications you get here will also determine the way you're going to design your platform. Next is ingestion and transformation. Whenever you're choosing an ingestion and transformation tool, you have to think about different things like the timeliness of the data, the capabilities of the tool, maintenance effort, etc. So it's also the same for kitchen. You have to think about how the expiration, the spoilage of your food. And then storage. Here I have generally you can categorize your storage systems into 4 different areas, into 4 categories. And here are the different dimensions that you can compare your tools on. So there's maintenance, storage, performance, data types, etc. Okay, and then there's query analysis. But before you think about that, you have to also understand who is using the data, aka your customers. And we have identified that for most data platforms across the world, there's generally 4 different kinds of users that use data platforms. There's business users who make data-driven decisions using the data. There's data analysts who try to analyze data trends from the data. There are data scientists and engineers who develop tools and algorithms to process all that data. And then there's external applications and downstream systems that will use the data from your platform. Okay, I'll just make this really quick. So for the last part, I'm just going to talk about the different kinds of interfaces that you can use to present your data with in your platform. So basically, here in this left column, you can see the different kind of interface. And then there's a list of users that would benefit from these. So for example, spreadsheets is the very most basic way to interact with data. Everybody uses that, even engineers. Right? But if you're going to use things like SQL, your business users probably aren't going to use that, but your analysts and scientists would, etc. Okay, so I think it's we're good. Thanks, everyone.
So I basically have one slide, and it's. So there was already a talk about ChatGPT, but that was about how to build apps around it, right? But so when I mentioned it this morning, you were all laughing a bit, like, mm-hmm. And I know you all have one question, right? And that one question is, basically, are we going to lose our jobs? True, right? Have you played around with it already? It's pretty cool, right? For those of you who don't, I thought, well, maybe I could give a short introduction to what it can do and whether or not we should worry about it. So a lot of questions I get is from people saying, yeah, but it's just like Google, right? Well, it is basically, because you figured out, so what happens at PyCon, for instance, and it will give you an idea about what happens at PyCon. Of course, what happens at PyCon stays at PyCon, right? But so it's an annual conference for Python programming language, and it has several locations, and the most recent one was PyCon 22. Oh, it's not displaying. How can I do that? I'm really sorry. Just a sec. Wait. That's weird. Nobody says anything. Just shout, right? Probably duplicate. Is this better? It is, right? So back to the browser. Ah, okay, there goes my 5 minutes. I can't get it working. That's weird. Well, Keep changes. Go back to the browser. Oh, phew. It's there, right? So I just asked it what is PyCon. So there's a lot of PyCons. When I asked it earlier, actually, it gave a different answer. It also talked about lightning talks and stuff. So it's pretty good, right? You can just ask that. So how many islands? Well, fuck my mouse. How many islands are there in the Philippines? So it will do just the basic stuff, right? It will answer this because it has that knowledge it learned over time. So it has like 7,600 islands. Thank you for the 3 minutes left. So but the thing is, you can do much more with it. So for instance, my daughter needed to go on an internship. So we took a CV and we talked to ChatGPT because it's actually really chatty. So you're Sam, you're young, enthusiastic in hospitality. This is the stuff that she wrote, actually, my daughter. And then I said to her, please rewrite it in proper English. And then it said, well, basically, it comes up with the text. And Sam has a broad skill set that allows him to excel in fast-paced, la, la, la. So it actually is able to generate some text from it. And then I said, well, pretty cool, except that Sam is a girl. And also, you can make it a bit younger because she's 27, right? And then it actually does that. It comes up with a new text, and it's improved. And I said, could you shorten this a bit? Sure, it shortens it a bit. And I said, well, this is this description of the restaurant that it works, which I got from their website. Could you make it so we can put it on LinkedIn, right? And then it does that, of course. So it does all that stuff, and in a pretty chatty way you can talk to it. I actually caught myself in saying, please, could you do this or that, right? So I'm talking to a computer, which is kind of weird. And the next question would, of course, be, does it also help with computing? Now, of course, you can still use it as if it is like an update to Google. You could say, like, what is the unit of timeout? I told it this morning, right? Timeout in a Axios provider. I can't type. Request. And it will actually look it up, and it will actually try and figure this out, right? Now, the thing is, I probably put it in the wrong chat. Wait, let me get a new chat. What's the unit of timeout in an Axios request? Let's see what it comes up with, right? So it can do smarter stuff than you think, right? So basically it says it is in milliseconds, and now it will actually come up with an example. This is pretty useful stuff, right? But it gets better, actually. So I actually took up a function from the open source framework that we were writing, which is the traverse function, which can traverse a JSON object. And I put it into ChatGPT just to say, so what do you think of my code? And I add the code to it, and it will actually give an opinion, which is good, right? So it comes up with this opinion, and it says, well, oh, it's poor. Oh, no, the pros and the cons. So it actually does that, right? And I could ask it to improve on this code. I could also ask to say, well, could you write me some unit tests in jest for this thing? And it will actually do this. And he's sure, it's some example unit tests in jest for your traverse function. It will actually remember that I was talking about the traverse function, and it will actually come up with a decent set of unit tests. So mind you, this actually works. I've already put some of these tests directly into the framework itself, which is kind of nice because it saves a lot of time. Again, as I talked this morning, this is still just unit testing, right? This is not TDD. But you could also use it in that form. It gets messier when you start to take it into more specific code. So I took some of my company's code and said, okay, look at this particular function, and could you also write something for that? So here's the function. What do you think? Yep, it's time. So it actually does that too. But if I would now have to write unit tests, it actually comes up with the same sort of generic unit test, but it doesn't actually feel into the frameworks that we are using additionally on the default frameworks that you're using. So that means all the code you write, you let it write, it's still very basic. If you find all sorts of smart functions in the frameworks that you're using yourself in your company, it will not recognize that. Will we get to that point? For sure, right? At some point in time, somebody will program or actually make a large language model learn the stuff that you have in your company. And the bigger the company is, the more money they can spend in it. So the bigger the chances that it will actually learn to write in your framework. If you're in a small company, you have less to worry because most small companies do not yet have the time and the effort and the money to learn these large models. So are we all going to lose our jobs? No, we're not. But we are getting into a new phase where we get new assistants to help us to write better code. That's the lightning.